So, a very good evening, boys and girls, and welcome back to another video. And in this one, we're going to do some handheld long exposures. Let's see how slow I can go. So recently, I've been experimenting with leaving the tripod at home a little bit more. And as somebody that does a lot of long exposure photography, I kind of rely on tripods quite heavily. But let's be honest, they're a little bit heavy and a little bit cumbersome. So I've got my omsystem 8 to 25mm lens on. Let's go take a photograph of that concrete slab behind us. Let's just see if I can get down to maybe 2.5 seconds. We'll try something easy. Let's just see how it goes. So the camera is in manual mode and I've got 2 seconds dialed in. I'm shooting at ISO 200. I'm going to adjust the aperture to suit to give me the shutter speed that I'm looking for here. The image stabilisation mode that I'm using is the all direction shake. Normally I have it on auto, but for this one I thought I'll throw all direction shake on and hopefully that'll give us a little bit of a helping hand. I'm also using an ultra wide angle lens, which is a little bit more forgiving to camera shake than say a telephoto lens. So we're starting off something easy just to get our heads around it and get into the swing of it. Let's have a look. Let's take a photograph of this. Let's just see how it turns out. So 2 seconds, f10, ISO 200. It's giving me roughly what I like. I've got ND 128 turned on in the camera. This camera features live NDs, which enables me to do long exposure photography without the need to throw actual ND filters on, which helps with this. It takes a little bit of weight off the front of the lens. It just makes things a little bit easier. So let's have a look. Let's take this photograph. So using the handhold assist feature, I can see I was a little bit wobbly, but not too much. And in the electronic viewfinder, that photo looks all right. Now here it is. So in a way, it's kind of the perfect day for a little bit of this long exposure photography. You can see it's a bit overcast now. So earlier on today, we had bright blue skies and a little bit of cloud has now blown across, which is going to give a little bit of drama in the skies. There's also a bit of a breeze blown up as well, which is going to give a little bit of chop and white water to all of the waves that are crashing, which is going to leave a little bit of texture and a little bit of detail in the long exposure photographs. So it's a bit cloudy, it's a bit breezy, there's a bit of chop on the water. All kind of fun circumstances you're looking for when you come out and do this seascape stuff. So let's go take some photos of them posts behind me. So it's now time for my favourite pastime, which is standing in the North Sea. You can see just behind me there's a concrete slab nestled between these two posts and a cluster of posts a little bit further out. So I thought we'd throw the ultra wide on, get really close, angle down, exaggerate that foreground and just see what we can do with it. I've been having a little bit of play as I've come along the beach. 2 seconds seems to be my limit. 2 seconds. So let's do this then, let's get nice and wet. So if I stand roughly here, I'm nice and close to this concrete slab, which enable me to sort of angle down, really exaggerate the size of it, still keeping these posts in, and hopefully getting a long exposure around the post off in the distance. And yes, this is really cold right now. I use a handhold assist on this camera, which puts a bit of a box on the screen with some lines either side and a square in the middle, and it tells you how much you're moving the camera. It wasn't moving all that much. Hopefully the 8.5 stops of image stabilisation in this camera has counteracted my wobbliness and we have a nice sharp photo, because I really don't want to do that again. So we're moving along the beach now and I've been perfecting my stance. I've been trying to adopt myself as a tripod and so far I think it's working. But one thing I'm struggling with massively is getting over this 2 second barrier. Even with the ultra wide angle lens on, where camera shake is somewhat negated, I'm really struggling to get any more than 2 seconds. So I'm going to try again with these posts. I'm going to try and maybe get down to 3-4 seconds. There's going to be a lot of trial, a lot of error, probably a lot of swearing as well, which I will omit from this video. But yeah, one thing I'm really struggling with is keeping the shaking to a minimum. Let's try. All right, so this is a 4 second photograph. And the stance I've kind of been adopting is tucking my elbows into my chest and really pressing the camera as hard to my face as I can. And I was able to get something that appears to be nice and sharp and steady down to 4 seconds just by adopting a different stance. Earlier on in the video, I was kind of all loosey elbows up, how I usually shoot handheld. But with this one, I've really found tucking in and pressing against it. And that seems to be giving me enough stabilisation in myself to keep the camera steady. So here is a 4-second photograph of those posts handheld. So I'm going to show you a crop in of a photograph that I've just shown you. And I think I can kind of understand how the image stabilisation is working here. I'm using a really wide angle lens, and that last photograph was taken at 8mm. And if you look towards the corner of the frame, you can see just how blurry it is. But as I pan in towards the middle of the photograph, you can see it gets sharper and sharper and sharper. So I wonder if using a wide angle lens is actually counterintuitive. So I wonder if using a wide angle lens is counterintuitive to the camera's stabilisation system. So let's throw a slightly more telephoto lens on and just see if we have any more joy in the corners. So I've moved down now to my favourite group of posts. You can see these ones actually have the boards still attached, which I always find makes for an interesting change to everything else around here. And there's this piece of netting that has been there for years and it's still clinging on. And I always like how it's just there and it's just accepting its fate. But I've thrown the 12 to 100mm on. A slightly longer focal length, but this lens is also stabilised as well. And I have the stabilisation turned on. Now, I know there is a way of getting the camera and the lens to do some sort of sync IS or dual IS. I'm not sure how that works or if it's even accepted in this combination. We'll see, but we're going to take some photographs around here and I'm going to try and progressively get slower and slower and slower. The light is fading now, so that should make life a little bit easier for doing the handheld long exposures. Let's just see how it goes. Okay, so first up from this spot, you can see a group of groins, these small little posts just leading out. They'll lead out in kind of a straight line, which should make for a fun little looking long exposure photograph. And we're going to up now to 5 seconds. My previous best earlier on in the video was 4. We're going to go for another second and try 5. I'm going to focus on the posts roughly a third of the way through the photograph. And this is going to be really difficult, so let's go. Oh, not wobbling, not wobbling. I'm really tucked in on my left arm here. Let's try one more as the waves go out. Ah, that's not actually too bad. So here's a 5-second photograph of these groins handheld. Alright, so for this next photograph, I'm going to try something I wouldn't usually do, which is really compress the scene using the telephoto end of this lens. You can see behind me all these boards here, they are quite separated, but if I zoom in using the telephoto lens, it will compress the distance between them. It will create some really sort of boarded out sort of look to this photograph. So we're going to try something a little bit different, a little bit zoomed in, and I hope it works out okay. So let's get down there and try this photograph. So you can see the lens is zoomed out. So let's get into some sort of position which will place all of these boards together as one continuous line down the left-hand side of the image. I've kind of got them going down in like a diagonal sort of triangle line. So I'm going to have one side of the photograph boards and one side water. And I've decided I can't go slower, so we're going to go back down to 4 seconds, which is where I'm comfortable. Let's see how it turns out. Okay, so from around here, we're kind of getting the look that I'm going for. So I'm going to focus roughly halfway down them. So the depth of field is going to fall either side of where I focus. Obviously, we're shooting a little bit more telephoto. So wide open on this, we are going to get some kind of shallow depth of field. But hopefully, it's going to look quite nice. So let's take this photograph. I'll focus on one of the larger boards halfway down. I'll just tuck my elbows into my chest. And here we go. So let's just check on the viewfinder. No, I wobbled around way too much there. Let's try that again. And again, I'm just checking the viewfinder. That one was better. Here it is. So I've been trying to think of a way to best take a photograph of these posts and the boards. Now, the tide hasn't quite reached as high as I was hoping it was going to do. Sunset is in roughly 10 minutes. We're not going to have too much time. The best way I can think to do this is basically just shoot straight down the throat of it, as daft as that sounds. So let's have a look at doing that. We've got the main boards caving round in the front. We've got a set of groins either side. Now, fair enough, the ones on the right-hand side are going to be somewhat obscured by the bend in this old pier, but let's just see how it turns out. So again, I'm going to go down to 4 seconds, and the aperture we're at now is f4 is overexposing, f5.6 is looking all right, and ISO 200. And as I say again, we're down at 4 seconds. So let's see how this one turns out. I like how dramatic the sky is starting to become. So let's have a look. This is really, I need to figure out which way. So left and right gives the big lines, and everywhere else is the box in the middle. So let's have a look. On the focus right on the boards at the front. Here we go. Yes! I got one. It was sharp and everything. Here it is. All right, so I think that's going to about conclude this video. So what have I learned tonight? Well, first and foremost, I'm a little bit shaky with the camera. I kind of already knew that, and I guess using tripods for so long has probably put me a little bit out of practice shooting handheld. But at least I know that I can do handheld long exposure photographs with this camera and certainly this lens combination. The 8.5 stops of IBIS in this thing are absolutely fantastic for this kind of photography. So hopefully it's something I can look at again in the future. I've heard whispers and rumours that a fellow photographer and YouTuber using the same camera that I am, Lee Windridge, in conversations that we've had and comments backwards and forwards, I've heard that he's able to get down to 30 seconds. So I may have to reach out to Lee and find out how on earth he's actually achieving that, because it's something I would certainly like to be able to do myself. But I guess the fact that I'm so twitchy, well, it possibly doesn't help the cause. So thank you very much for watching the video. If you have enjoyed it, please do give it a like and a thumbs up. It really does help to bring new viewers to see my content. And if you want to see more Micro Four Thirds nonsense every single week and you're seeing me for the very first time, well, why not hit that subscribe button down below and you'll see more Micro Four Thirds content from myself. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.